It all started with a simple, noble idea to follow the rules. Every single one, no matter how small, no matter how utterly, profoundly stupid. I thought, what could possibly go wrong? Turns out, everything. Literally everything. My descent into rule-abiding madness began on a Monday morning. Naturally, I saw a sign on the coffee shop door. Please use other door. So I walked around the entire block to find the other door, which, plot twist, was locked. By the time I got back to the first door, my boss had called me 3 times. I arrived at the office, late, holding a cold, imaginary coffee, and saw the sign, "Employees must wash hands before returning to work." Fair enough. I washed my hands. Then I saw another sign above the sink, "Conserve water." So I turned off the tap. But my hands were still soapy, so I turned it back on. Then off. Then on. Then off. I was trapped in a hydraulic moral dilemma. I spent 20 minutes in a one-man water conservation rave. My hands pruned. My soul withered. My boss found me there, staring at the faucet, muttering about sustainability. I think he recommended I take the rest of the day off, which was a rule I was more than happy to follow. On my way home, I encountered the dreaded crosswalk button. You know the one? Press button to cross street. Wait for walk signal. It doesn't say press once, so I pressed it, and I kept pressing it, like a deranged woodpecker on a mission from a very specific, very bureaucratic god. People stared. A child pointed. I think his mother told him I was an art installation. I stood there for what felt like an eternity. Waiting, the signal never changed. I later learned the button was a placebo, a relic from a bygone era. It wasn't connected to anything, just like my sense of purpose at that moment. That evening, I decided to make some soup. The instructions on the can were very clear. Do not microwave in can. So I poured it into a bowl. Then I read the microwave instructions. Cover before heating. I didn't have a microwave cover, but the can lid was right there. It was a cover, wasn't it? A metal cover. A very, very metal cover. Let's just say the resulting light show was more impressive than my town's 4th of July fireworks. And my microwave now has a permanent, abstract scorch mark that I'm telling people is a Jackson Pollock original. My apartment's fire alarm, which has a little label that says, "Do not disable," screamed its cheerful song. My neighbors were not amused, especially since the building rules clearly state quiet hours after 10 p.m. My very loud, very panicked apologies were, technically, a violation. The next day was even more thrilling. My new toaster had a warning label, "For household use only." This presented a problem. I live in an apartment. Is an apartment a house, or is it a home, or a residence? I spent an hour on legal forums trying to figure out if I was about to commit toaster fraud. I ended up just eating bread untoasted like a barbarian, but a rule-abiding barbarian. Then I went to the park, a bastion of rules, a true paradise for someone like me. Do not feed the pigeons easy enough. I clutched my sad, untoasted bread to my chest. Then I saw a sign, "Keep off the grass," so I stayed on the path. The path led directly to a bench with a sign that said, "Wet paint, do not sit." So I stood for 2 hours, watching a man practice Tai Chi on the forbidden grass, while a flock of pigeons ate an entire loaf of bread. Someone had conveniently left behind. He was living his best life. I was living in a Beckett play. The real turning point was the library, a place I once considered a sanctuary, a holy temple of order. The sign at the entrance read, "Silence is golden." I took this to heart. I communicated only through elaborate hand gestures and panicked facial expressions. When I couldn't find a book on medieval basket weaving, I tried to mime it to the librarian. She thought I was having a seizure and called security. The security guard, a large man named Frank, had his own set of rules, including no interpretive dance in the nonfiction aisle, a rule I apparently broke with my desperate attempt at charades. Things escalated when I tried to use the self-checkout. The screen flashed an error message. "Please see attendant for assistance." The attendant was busy. The sign at her desk said, "Please wait to be called." So I waited. I stood there, motionless, book in hand, for 45 minutes. People came and went. The sun began to set. The librarian from earlier kept giving me the sign, convinced I was about to mime the entire Dewey Decimal System. Eventually Frank, the security guard, came over and asked if I was okay. I pointed at the sign. He sighed a sigh that contained the existential weight of 1,000 broken rules. He just waved me through. He told me to just go. Take the book. He didn't care anymore. That was the final straw, a rule enforcer telling me to break a rule. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a library card. I walked out of that library a changed man. The world was no longer a clear set of instructions. It was a chaotic, beautiful, messy suggestion box. My journey into the heart of regulatory darkness had taught me one thing. Rules are made by people who are just as confused as the rest of us. They're like guardrails on a road to nowhere. Sometimes you have to hop the guardrail, do some interpretive dance on the grass, and maybe, just maybe, microwave the soup can. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Please don't actually do that. Seriously, that's a rule worth following. So what did I learn from my week of perfect obedience? I learned that the letter of the law can kill your spirit. I learned that common sense is the most important rule of all, and it's never written down. I learned that my microwave makes a very interesting sound when it explodes, and that Frank, the security guard, deserves a raise, so now I live by a new code, a simpler code, a more elegant code. Be excellent to each other and don't be a robot. Unless the sign explicitly says please be a robot, in which case you're on your own. I'm still working out the kinks. So if you enjoyed my slow descent into madness, or if you just feel a little bit better about your own life choices, now do me a favor. Go ahead and break a pointless rule today. And while you're at it, follow a very good rule and hit that like button. Share this with someone who takes things a little too seriously. And subscribe for more questionable life experiments. Thanks for watching.